Night had fallen over Coruscant. The city lights shone like a sea of artificial stars. Inside the chancellor's office, Palpatine watched the horizon with a restrained smile. The gears were in motion. The Jedi Council was suspicious, but it was too late. Anakin Skywalker was in his hands. The whispers from the dark side had planted the seeds of fear and mistrust in the young knight. Now Palpatine just needed to water the tree of the final fall. Walking alone through the hall, he murmured to himself with pleasure. So many have tried, so many have failed, but I have understood the true nature of the Force. It is not balance that it demands. It is mastery. It is order. His half-lidded eyes twinkled as he remembered his apprentices. Darth Maul, fast, lethal, but impulsive, foolish. He fell in half. Dooku, elegant but blind, full of pride, used and discarded. And now, I have something greater, the One, the very instrument of the prophecy, shaped by my hands. He paused, looking at the shadow cast on one of the walls. Anakin is different. I nurtured him carefully. I nurtured his doubts. I've blown the fear of loss into his ears. He fears losing Padme. He fears not being strong enough. And in fear, the dark side blooms. He laughed low. The Jedi are blind. They push him towards me without even realizing it. The next time we meet, he'll know. I'll know how to reveal who I am. But it will be too late for him to turn back. Palpatine spent the rest of the night planning. He paced back and forth, talking to himself. But when he went to bed, something unusual happened. Sleep did not come easily, and when it finally came, it brought with it darkness, not rest. He dreamt. He dreamt of metallic sounds, of distant echoes. The air seemed dense, heavy, and before him stood a twisted figure with eyes full of hatred. It was Maul, still alive in the dream, but broken in half. His lower half disappeared into shadows. Maul stared at Palpatine with injected eyes. You used me. I believed in you. I was loyal. And you didn't even care when pieces of me fell into oblivion, Master. Palpatine tried to speak, but his mouth felt heavy. He began to suspect that it was a dream, a very strange and conscious dream. Maul approached, crawling with only the upper side of his body split in two. The dark side deceives us, promises us power, but it only gives us pain. Then a loud thud interrupted the moment. A head rolled to the floor. It was Dooku's, cold, his eyes still open. Dooku's voice came out without his body. You trained me, you praised me, and when the time came, you sent Anakin to kill me without any mercy. Just to kill an opponent who could no longer resist. I was used as a pawn. I was a count, a virtuous warrior, a politician, and yet I was disposable to you. The head's eyes fixed on Palpatine. We both fell for listening to you, and now, will the same happen to Skywalker? With everyone who trusts you? Palpatine didn't understand why he was having that dream. He never really cared about those two, so why were they starring in that nightmare? Maul, even more somber, threw himself at Palpatine's feet with expressions of misery. You think you'll win, but you are alone as you have always been. The throne of the dark side is cold. No servant is loyal, no victory is complete. Only fall, only darkness. Dooku replied as his ungainly, handless body tried to lift that head that was rolling at Palpatine's feet. Look at me. Look at him. This is the price of following in your footsteps. You talk about control, but you never had any. You've only ever been afraid. And fear always collects its debt. Palpatine awoke with a start. He was lying down, but his body felt cold. Nonsense. Just a dream. But his racing heart told him otherwise. He got up, staggering, trying to regain control. But as he looked ahead, he saw something even worse. In the dark, a hooded figure appeared. The voice was whispery but firm. My former apprentice. His eyes widened. It was Darth Plagueis. Palpatine took a step back. You're dead. I killed you. The figure didn't answer immediately. He just watched. Then it spoke. Perhaps there is still time for you to be different, but your soul is almost completely buried in the dark side. It will be almost impossible. You're already rotten inside, just as your master was when you took his life in your sleep." Palpatine tried to look away, but the presence of his former master was overwhelming. "You will be visited. 3 ghosts of the Force will come to you, one from the past, one from the present, and one from the future. They will show you what you have done, what you are doing, and what's to come. Look, either sink for good, or repent bitterly and try to escape this fate that is already marked with your name." Palpatine woke up with a start, and this time he realized that he had actually woken up. He was in his private chamber, alone. His panting and the sweat on his face reminded him that something terrible had happened in his mind. He ran his hands over his face and tried to dismiss it as just a bad dream. But as the day progressed, something inside him remained unsettled. The images of Darth Maul split in half and Dooku's head kept flashing through his mind. Those voices still echoed. Those dead eyes watched him. This was very strange for him because he had never cared about those 2 men before. That sort of thing wasn't really his thing. As he gazed at the Coruscant skyline from his office window, the Chancellor began to convince himself that it was all just a weak illusion. "Dreams are for the weak. I am the result of the will of the Force. I am in control," he muttered to himself. He knew that his plan was coming to a climax. The war was in its final moments, the Jedi were vulnerable, and Anakin Skywalker was getting closer to crossing the line. Nothing could interfere. Nothing should interfere. That same afternoon, he sent for Anakin for one more conversation. He intended to reveal the final secret. The plan was coming to fruition. Palpatine paced in circles inside his office, mentally rehearsing the words he would use. He was ready to tell people that he was a Sith, not out of weakness but out of pride. He was about to seal the fate of the Chosen One. But before Anakin arrived, a different sensation filled the air. It was as if the Force itself had held its breath. In the center of the room, a hooded figure appeared, translucent, shrouded in a diffuse light. Palpatine froze. It was a man in ancient armor, with hard features and intense eyes. Revan, a Jedi from the distant past, long since turned into a legend. Palpatine recognized the name but had never expected to see him, let alone in this form and at this time. Revan remained silent for a few seconds. "Palpatine," Revan said calmly, "you think you've invented something new, but you just repeat cycles. I have walked between light and shadow. I've seen what absolute power brings. And now, I see you falling deeper than anyone else. You need to understand what happened before you. Understanding the past is the only chance to change the future." Palpatine squeezed his eyes shut. "Why me? Why now? That dream? All that? Were you there? Somehow?" His voice was now one of distrust, but not fear. Palpatine had spent his whole life pretending and hadn't stopped acting even at this moment. But he was very curious about this event. Then the old Sith tried to raise his lightsaber and strike the being in front of him, but the spectre didn't even move. When he activated the saber, the red blade cut through the air. Without effect. The spectre couldn't be touched. It was made only of the Force. Palpatine switched off the blade with a slight grind of his teeth. A signal rang out. It was the warning that Anakin Skywalker had arrived. Palpatine looked at Revan's figure and wondered if all this would ruin his plans. He walked to the entrance and opened the doors, looking tired. "Anakin, forgive me. I'm not well. I need to rest tonight. We can talk tomorrow," he said in a weak voice. Like a kind old man Anakin believed he could trust. Anakin hesitated, noticing the Chancellor's strange countenance, but nodded. "All right, sir. See you tomorrow." And he left. Palpatine closed the door slowly and turned to the spectre. "So, what would you like to show me?" Revan raised his hand and, in an instant, Palpatine's mind was pulled to another place in all of existence. A place filled only with the Force itself. Images began to appear. His dark childhood. The cold murder of his master, Darth Plagueis. The cruel smile at seeing Maul fail. The betrayal of Dooku. Thousands of deaths. Entire systems sinking into war. Children separated from their families. planets burning at his command. Revan didn't speak. He just watched. It was Palpatine who heard the voices, the pleas, the screams, the whispers of the dead. A strange feeling seized his chest. It wasn't regret. It was discomfort. For the first time, he was feeling the Force as a trial, as if it were staring back at him. He saw himself as he was, without masks, without plans, just a being drowned in darkness. Revan finally spoke. You forged your empire with blood and lies. You manipulated destinies. You broke the balance of the Force. The past cannot be erased, but it can teach. Revan then turned away and began to disappear. My part is over, but others will come. Listen, or sink. The room returned to normal. Palpatine was breathing hard. He still felt the strange energy in his body, as if his soul had been touched by something ancient and pure. He sat up slowly and muttered, "What was that power? What kind of force was that? I've never felt anything like it before, but it's very interesting." He closed his eyes for a moment and, when he opened them, a slow, dark smile formed on his face. Maybe I can learn to master even that. I'm so close to completing my plan, but I've become very interested in this new kind of power that has come to me so willingly. So be it. I'll accept these visits from the ghosts of the Force and use them to become my own power. Since his meeting with Revan, Palpatine has cancelled all his appointments for that day. He asked that nothing and no one disturb him and turned off all the communicators in his office. He sat in his chair as if he were on a throne and, for the first time in a long time, he wasn't focused on controlling the Senate or manipulating the Jedi. His attention was now on something else. The next visit. Revan had said that another Force ghost would be coming. Then come, he muttered. Show what you have to show, and we'll see who influences whom. It wasn't long before the light in the room began to distort and a soft glow took shape in front of him. The second visitor had arrived. It was Qui-Gon Jinn, Obi-Wan Kenobi's former master. Palpatine stood up slowly, analyzing the ethereal figure. "You're not exactly what I expected," he said with slight sarcasm. Qui-Gon, as always, remained calm. "I'm not here to fight. I'm here because you need to see it." Palpatine arched an eyebrow. "See what? Your stubborn defiance of the Council? That I know well." "To see from the beginning," said Qui-Gon. "From when I was on Tatooine and met Anakin." A new mental journey began. Palpatine was not frightened. He knew it was the Force driving everything. He saw the moment when Qui-Gon met Anakin. He saw the confidence in the Jedi's eyes when he told him that this child was the chosen one. "You've been watching since that day," said Qui-Gon. "The seed was planted and you've been shaping it ever since." Palpatine smiled. "I only watered what had already been born." The vision had changed. Now Palpatine saw war ravaging planets. He saw battlefields covered in bodies of clones, Jedi, droids. "This war didn't have to happen," said Qui-Gon. "But you made it happen, and the price is paid by many." Palpatine crossed his arms. "And yet, the Senate supports me, the systems support me. The galaxy wants order." Qui-Gon replied firmly, "And you use chaos to promise that order. That's a lie, not leadership." Palpatine's face became more serious. "Lies are useful tools. You murdered Count Dooku just to manipulate Anakin," Qui-Gon accused. Palpatine didn't reply immediately. The images showed Dooku kneeling, begging for mercy before having his head cut off. "He was disposable," said Palpatine. "It was just one step too far." Qui-Gon continued, "And the next step is Order 66. You will betray every Jedi, one by one." Palpatine replied with a restrained smile. "And yet, everything fits together. All the pieces line up as they should." He began to realize that, somehow, it was all part of destiny. Meanwhile, in the Jedi Temple, the members of the Council were meeting with Anakin Skywalker. Yoda, Mace Windu, Ki-Adi-Mundi, and Plo Koon were present. Obi-Wan had been sent to confront Grievous. "The Chancellor is acting strange," said Anakin. "He called me yesterday, but today he dismissed me saying he wasn't well. And I sensed something. Something powerful in the Force, inside his quarters. Mace frowned. Did you recognize the presence? Anakin shook his head. No, but it wasn't the Chancellor. It was someone else. The council exchanged silent glances. Yoda rested his hands on his cane. Mace looked directly at Anakin. You have his trust. Go back. Talk to him. Find out who was there. Anakin nodded somewhat reluctantly. I'll do that, but something tells me that everything is about to change, Yoda murmured. And change it will, The tension grew. Everyone knew they were close to a breaking point, but no one knew how close. Back in his office, Qui-Gon showed Palpatine one last vision. It was a bleak future. The fall of the Republic. The destruction of the Jedi Temple. Children being killed. Fires consuming planets. That is the consequence, said the ghost. All because of your ambition. Palpatine watched without blinking. This is the birth of a new empire, he retorted. And you know it. Qui-Gon only replied, You don't understand the Force. You only control it. And that will come at a cost. Palpatine inclined his head. We'll see. The light around Qui-Gon began to fade. His image slowly dissipated. You will have the chance to choose, he said at last. The Force is alive, and it always finds balance. Even without you. Palpatine remained silent, absorbing every word. When he was alone again, he sat down slowly. That energy, that presence, was unlike anything else. It was ancient, powerful, true. He whispered, It wasn't control. It was understanding. And then he smiled. A dark, mischievous smile. What else can I get out of it? These ghosts think they're warning me, but they're just revealing new paths. He knew another visit would come. The night was still, and Anakin Skywalker's house seemed quieter than usual. When he entered the small room, he found Padme sitting thoughtfully. She looked at him and noticed the expression on his face. You look upset, she said softly. Anakin sighed, sitting down next to her. I am. The Jedi want me to investigate the Chancellor. They think he's doing something wrong. But at the same time, I've formed a friendship with him. He was an important figure to me, Padme, and now, I don't know what to think. Padme stared at him, her eyes reflecting her concern. Anakin, you're a Jedi. Your loyalty is to them, to the Order. But at the same time, I know how much you respect the Chancellor. Perhaps, if you talk to him, if he really is who you think he is, you'll discover the truth. She touched his hand. Just be careful. Be honest with yourself. Anakin shook his head, his gaze empty for a moment. I know, Padme, but I can't help feeling that something bigger is going on. I feel a very strong presence within the Force. Something familiar. He stood up slowly. I need to go talk to him. I'm going to find out what's going on. I hope you're right. He kissed his wife and, with a sigh, headed for the Chancellor's office. While Anakin walked to the Senate, Palpatine was in his office, feeling invincible. He had understood something deeper about the Force ghosts that had visited him. Now he knew that the very essence of the Force could be manipulated, not just controlled. I was always more than any Jedi could imagine. These ghosts, these old Force ghosts, are teaching me how to see what I've never seen. How to understand the truth behind death, life and existence itself. He muttered to himself, his mind racing rapidly. I bring the one to my side, and at the same time, I seek to understand this new power. When that happens, the galaxy will be mine. There will be no more limitations. He smiled as he thought about the future. Now, it's only a matter of time. Night fell and, as expected, another visitor appeared. The presence in the air was dense, and Palpatine leaned back in his chair, curious. The image that appeared before him was impressive, but what he felt wasn't just the power of the Force. It was something deeper, more personal. The ghost of a burnt and disfigured man, with half his body intact and the other half blackened and twisted by the flames. Palpatine stared in amazement, unable to hide his bewilderment. Anakin Skywalker, but you're still alive, he exclaimed, his voice a little shaky, despite the facade of confidence. I am far beyond being alive or dead, Palpatine, replied the ghost, Anakin's voice full of anger and pain. I am the consequence of your actions, the result of what you have done. You corrupted me. You almost made me kill my master, Obi-Wan. You almost killed me, and you made me kill so many other people. Because of you, I killed Padme. He looked directly at the Chancellor, his eyes burning with hatred. You were responsible for everything. The reason I joined the dark side of the Force. You did it. And when you commanded Order 66, you almost destroyed all the Jedi. You were responsible for destroying everything I knew. Palpatine remained silent for a moment, absorbing the words, but his expression didn't waver. If that's the game you want to play, then let's play it. If I did this, it was because I saw potential in you, Anakin. I saw the opportunity to unleash all your power. I trained you to become more than any Jedi. I brought you to the dark side to ensure that the Chosen One fulfilled his destiny. He smiled dismissively. You don't understand, Anakin. What I did, no matter when, was for the greater good. The Empire, my great goal, is and was necessary for true order to be established. Palpatine was so used to politicking that he spoke to the ghost as if he himself were also from the future. This was yet another of his tricks to try to bend and control this new power of the Force he was witnessing. Anakin, the ghost of his own future, was furious. The true order? You destroyed my soul, Palpatine. You forced me to kill children in the Jedi Temple, including my own brothers and sisters. I destroyed my family. I lost everything because you deceived me. And the worst thing is that you feel no remorse, no guilt. I and my son, Luke, and my daughter, Leia, were victims of your actions. They suffered. They grew up not knowing who they were. All because of you. Anakin's anger was palpable, his presence in the Force vibrating with pain. And because of you, Padme died. Palpatine, however, did not back down, but continued his game of shadows and lies. And yet, you don't see it. I have unleashed the true power. I did what the Jedi could never do. I made you see what the Empire, my great goal, needs. You, Anakin Skywalker, were the chosen one, and the Empire needed a new leader. I saw what no one else saw. The future will be mine, and you will all pay the price for what you have done. The Chancellor smiled confidently as he believed he was in control of his own narrative and influencing the ghost with his knowledge of the future. The ghost of Anakin's future was silent for a moment, staring bitterly at the man he once respected. Do you think it was all worth it? The empire you created, it destroyed so many lives. There was no redemption, only suffering. You were the cause of it all, and that's something you'll never understand. Anakin's ghost turned to leave, but before disappearing into the darkness, he took one last look at the Chancellor. You will be responsible for all of this, until the end. As Anakin's ghost disappeared, Palpatine remained silent, reflecting on the words. He had been taught a lesson from a bleak future, but he had no regrets. He knew it was just another part of the plan. Anakin Skywalker could be the key to something greater, and he would do anything to seize this last opportunity. But what Palpatine didn't know was that the real Anakin Skywalker had witnessed the entire conversation between the Chancellor and the Ghost while he was hiding on the other side of the window in the politicians' quarters. The Chancellor noticed Anakin's presence on the other side of the window after Anakin smashed the glass with a blow and entered the Chancellor's chambers with fury in his eyes. Palpatine was surprised and quickly tried to reverse the situation. "Anakin, it's not what it seems," said Palpatine, his voice laden with false concern. "These visions, these manifestations, are distortions, projections of fear and doubt. You saw what you wanted to see." But Anakin was still furious, his eyes fixed, his face closed and his breathing heavy. "Don't confuse illusions with reality, young man. I only want the good of the galaxy. You are being deceived." "Deceived?" replied Anakin with immense anger. "Do you think I'm that foolish? What I saw wasn't a figment of my mind. It was me showing you everything you've done." Palpatine tried to remain calm, but his voice was already shaking with frustration. "If you trust these apparitions, You're betraying everything you've built. You are the chosen one. Think, Anakin. Think hard. But Anakin moved even closer. If being the chosen one means fulfilling your plan, then I'd rather destroy that choice. I won't be the monster you want me to be. Without another word, Anakin drew his blue lightsaber with a burst of energy. You're under arrest, Chancellor. It's over. Palpatine smiled and, in a sudden movement, turned his body and revealed his own red lightsaber. Fool! He shouted, striking with fury and precision. The red blade clashed with the blue and the office was filled with the fury of the duel. Rays of energy escaped from each blow. Sparks flew from the walls. Anakin used his brute strength and sharp reflexes, but Palpatine was treacherous and unpredictable. The battle intensified. Palpatine shot bolts of dark energy from his hands, trying to throw Anakin off balance, while he spun around and disappeared momentarily into the shadows of the room. Anakin blocked the lightning with his saber, dodged shrapnel, and used the Force to throw furniture and debris back. But he was at a disadvantage. You can't win, Anakin. I am the absolute power, roared Palpatine. Even at a disadvantage, Anakin continued. You'll never control the galaxy while I'm alive. A giant piece of furniture was thrown with such force that Anakin had no time to protect himself. He narrowly dodged, but missed the next blow. The red saber sliced through the air and struck Anakin's mechanical arm, severing it at the elbow. Anakin cried out in pain, staggering. His saber fell, but with a strong gesture of the Force, he pulled it back into his only remaining hand. He then remembered Obi-Wan's words, "In times of disadvantage, win with cunning." In one sudden movement, Anakin cut through the metal floor beneath his feet, dropped down a level and ran. "I'll tell everyone. Your plan ends now." Palpatine, enraged, took off in pursuit. He knew that if Anakin revealed what he had seen, all would be lost. He would never be able to establish the Empire or eliminate the Jedi. The tower was almost empty at that time of night, which worked in the Sith's favor. Anakin ran through the corridors, activating all the emergency signals with the Force. The alarms sounded loudly, echoing throughout the complex. Doors opened, red lights flashed, and employees and soldiers began to appear, stunned by the destruction. It was then that Anakin stopped and shouted, "Look, the Chancellor is a Sith." Palpatine tried to hold back, but his red saber was still activated. The guards froze at the sight of him. "This is not what it looks like," he shouted. But it was too late. They saw the saber, they saw the destroyed scenery, they saw the wounded Jedi, and they chose the right side. They joined Anakin in one last assault. Even though he was wounded, Anakin launched himself with all his strength and struck a powerful blow, cutting off Palpatine's right hand. Palpatine staggered backwards, screaming. The saber fell. Anakin didn't hesitate. He took another step and cut off the Sith's other hand. Palpatine was on his knees, defeated, helpless. Guards surrounded him and immediately arrested him. His eyes still burned with rage, but his power had been broken. Anakin, breathing hard, finally switched off his lightsaber. For the first time in a long time, he felt he was doing the right thing. The next day, the whole story broke and the Chancellor was stripped of all his posts. The truth came out. The threat from the dark side was exposed before it spread like a plague. The Jedi Council regained control of the Republic and initiated far-reaching reforms. Balance was beginning to return. Little by little, the citizens of the galaxy began to live without fear. On the day of Darth Sidious's public execution, 3 figures appeared in the shadows of the Jedi Temple and only Palpatine could see them. The old spirit of Qui-Gon, the ancient warrior Revan, and the image of Anakin himself, half burnt, half whole. They silently watched the end of an era, and then they disappeared, never to be seen again.